During the Memorial Day weekend known as Rolling Thunder, an injured Marine stood alone in the middle of a busy street, holding a salute for 3 straight hours. While he stood honoring the fallen, a group of bikers rolled in and did something no one expected. Under the blazing sun, veteran Sergeant Tim Chambers planted himself right in the middle of the road. His uniform was full of medals and patches, each one showing a piece of his service and the things he'd been through. He had already been standing there for 15 minutes, arm raised in a steady salute, a quiet tribute to his fellow Marines, especially the ones whose names were being carved into the new war memorial in front of him. It quickly became clear to everyone watching, Tim wasn't planning on moving, and he definitely wasn't putting his arm down. For 3 long hours, Tim didn't budge. His boots stayed rooted to the pavement, his eyes staring straight ahead, his salute as steady as stone. Pain throbbed from an old injury, something he'd brought home from his last deployment, but he refused to give in. His arm didn't drop, not even a little, like it was locked in place. People passing by stopped and stared. No one could believe what they were seeing. Word spread fast about the Marine who was standing strong, honoring those who never made it home. Crowds slowly started to form. Some people stood quietly by the roadside, holding small flags. Others watched from a distance, moved by the power of what was happening. And through it all, Tim's arm stayed raised. Inside, though, his mind was somewhere else. A memory was helping him stay strong, one he could never forget. Years earlier, Tim had lost his twin brother in combat. That day, Memorial Day, was the exact date his brother Mark had died, saving his life. They were identical twins, always together, inseparable since they were kids. Same interests, same dreams, same decision to join the Marines. In the service, they stuck close, always watching each other's backs. They had plans to grow old after serving together, but life had other ideas. As Tim stood there holding his salute, his heart replayed the last time he ever saw Mark alive. They'd been deployed to a war zone, fighting alongside their fellow Marines to protect their country. Gunfire and distant explosions echoed around them as the battle raged on. Before they even got full orders from command, they were suddenly ambushed by spies who'd secretly been operating in the area for some time. Tim and Mark's unit was hit hard, but they stood their ground and fought back with everything they had. Hidden snipers working with the spies had taken up positions on rooftops and hills. The moment they got the signal, they opened fire, killing 2 Marines instantly. It was rough, intense fighting. In the middle of the chaos, a sniper's bullet hit Tim in the leg. He fell hard and was in serious pain. Struggling to crawl to safety, he was spotted by Mark, who didn't even think twice. Dodging bullets, Mark ran straight to him and started dragging him to cover, using his own body as a shield. It was a brave move, but it also put him right in the sniper's line of fire. One shot hit Mark in the head. He collapsed onto Tim and died there, right in the middle of trying to save his brother. Tim screamed for him, begging him to wake up until other Marines reached them and pulled Mark's body off him. Tim's jaw tightened as the memory flashed through his mind. He closed his eyes for a second, trying to stop the tears from falling. Losing his twin had left a wound that never fully healed. Mark had died saving him, and that truth never left him. The pain from that day still hit harder than the injury in his leg. But with time, Tim had come to accept what happened. His brother had died a hero. It hadn't been easy, and for a long time, Tim had carried guilt with him. But now, he no longer blamed himself. Mark had made a choice, and Tim would always be thankful. Even though nothing could bring him back, Tim held on to the fact that his brother's bravery would never be forgotten. Everyone who knew Mark remembered what he did. Now, 2 hours in, Tim was still holding his salute strong. His arm burned, his muscles aching, but he didn't lower it. This wasn't just a show of respect, it was his quiet promise that he'd never forget the ones who gave everything, especially Mark. The midday sun was brutal, and every minute under it felt endless for Tim. Sweat rolled down his face and his uniform stuck to his skin, making him feel miserable. But none of it was enough to break his focus. He was there to honor his fellow Marines, and not even the heat could make him stop. It was so hot that people on the sidelines had to open umbrellas just to get some relief. Tim's throat was dry, but he still didn't drop his salute. His injured leg was in agony. Standing that long was something he hadn't done in years, and now every muscle in it screamed with pain. Still, the Marine stayed firm. He didn't even flinch. The discomfort was nothing compared to what his fellow service members had given. They had laid down their lives. His pain didn't even come close. As more time passed, Tim's silent salute became something more. It was a quiet symbol of the strength and perseverance that veterans around the world had shown during their years of service. It was for his brother, but also for all the others who deserved to be remembered. Who's he saluting? Has he been standing there this whole time? Is he a veteran? People murmured as they watched him. The soft whispers were a reminder that he wasn't alone. So many others were there too, drawn in by the same reason. A few stood back in silence, hands over their hearts, paying their respects in their own quiet ways. 3 hours had gone by, and Tim was still holding strong under the blazing sun. Some in the crowd started to drift away when suddenly a low rumble broke the silence. It grew louder with each second, matching the beat of John's heart. Over the ridge came a line of bikers riding in tight formation, leather vests covered in patches, their faces weathered with time and stories. The sound of their engines made everyone turn. As they got closer, people braced themselves. Many thought the bikers were going to ruin the moment. Quiet chatter turned into worried glances as the motorcycles rolled in. Some folks even started backing away. The bikers had a reputation, and not a good one. Most assumed they were lawbreakers or out to cause trouble. Just seeing them made some uneasy. The truth was, biker culture was often misunderstood. Their rough look, loud bikes, and outsider attitude had earned them a bad name over the years. People thought they were rebels who didn't care about rules. When they rode in large groups, the noise alone was enough to shake up a peaceful afternoon. And for those who didn't know better, they seemed like the last people you'd expect at a respectful gathering like this one. People had built up a lot of assumptions about bikers over the years. They lumped them all together, forgetting that not every biker was part of a gang or out to cause trouble. A lot of them were just regular folks. Hard-working, peaceful people who happened to love riding motorcycles. What many didn't know was that some of them were even veterans themselves. As the bikers came to a stop, they got off their bikes quietly and walked over in a steady, confident way. With their black leather jackets and tough appearances, they looked intimidating at first, but their eyes told a different story. There was something kind and real in their expressions, something most people didn't expect. The street fell quiet, everyone holding their breath, unsure of what was about to happen. People expected trouble, but what came next was the last thing anyone imagined. Without saying a word, the bikers formed a circle around Tim. One by one, they stood still, heads held high. Then all together, they raised their arms in salute. It was powerful. For several long minutes, they stood like that, unmoving, united with Tim in honoring the fallen. It wasn't just a salute. It was a silent promise that they too would never forget the men and women who gave everything. Tim glanced at them with a quiet look of gratitude. In their eyes, he saw the same respect and purpose that had brought him to the street that day. It was a touching moment, a moment that showed just how wrong the world had been about these men. The crowd saw it too. Bikers hadn't come to disrupt anything, they had come to honor. Then one of the bikers stepped out of the circle and slowly approached Tim. His arms and face were covered in tattoos, and his rough appearance made a few people tense up. But Tim could see past it. There was calm and kindness on his face, something that didn't need words. As he got closer, the biker reached into his jacket pocket. The crowd stirred. "Is he pulling out a gun?" one woman whispered nervously from behind. "I think it's a knife," someone else guessed. People braced themselves. But then the biker pulled out something simple and unexpected. A bottle of water. That's all. Many in the crowd felt a wave of shame for assuming the worst. Some looked away, embarrassed. The biker gently unscrewed the cap, walked right up to Tim and held it out for him. "Take a sip, brother. It's too hot out here. Shh," he said softly. Then, with quiet care, he held the bottle up so Tim could drink without lowering his arm. That way, the Marine could keep his salute going strong. The cold water refreshed him instantly, giving him just enough strength to keep going. Tim gave a small nod to the biker, a silent thank you that said more than words could. Without saying anything back, the man returned to the circle, raised his arm, and joined the others in their salute. Time passed, but Tim and the bikers remained standing, honoring the fallen. Their simple but powerful actions started to mend the divide that had long separated bikers from the rest of society. In their silence, the message was loud and clear. The people watching were moved. It was something they'd never seen before, and slowly, the fear they'd once felt toward the bikers started to disappear. They were seeing who these men truly were. By now, Tim was running on fumes. The heat was brutal, and every second on his feet got harder. But giving up had never been in his nature. Then, another biker stepped out from the circle. He didn't have water or snacks. He was holding something else, a small battery-powered fan. It was clear what he meant to do, and the moment Tim realized it, his eyes welled up. The biker walked quietly to Tim's side and began fanning him, offering a breeze that brought instant relief. It wasn't just about cooling off, it was like lifting a weight off his chest. Tim stood a little taller, his heart swelling with quiet gratitude. Just when people thought it couldn't get any better, another biker stepped forward. He positioned himself behind Tim and lifted an umbrella over his head, shielding him from the worst of the sun. Each of these small gestures reminded everyone watching that compassion still had a place in the world, and that sometimes it showed up in the most unexpected ways. As the sun began to dip, painting the sky with soft purples and gold, Tim finally lowered his arm. His body was exhausted, but his heart felt full. He had kept his promise to honor his brother and every fellow Marine who had given their life. Around him, the bikers dropped their salutes too. One by one, they came up to Tim. Some shook his hand, others just gave a quiet nod. No one had to speak. The respect between them said everything. Tim turned to the riders and thanked them sincerely for standing with him. Then he waved to the crowd gathered farther back. But before anyone could leave, Tim had something he wanted to share. "Today I saw the best side of these bikers," Tim began. "They might carry a rough reputation out there, but today they truly earned my respect. What they showed us is that it's easy to judge someone based on what others say or how they look, but a person's true character lives deeper than that, in their heart." He turned to the bikers and gave them a firm nod, a quiet thank you filled with meaning. His words struck a chord with everyone. You could feel the shift in the air. He wasn't just speaking about bikers, but about all of us and how we choose to see each other. As the crowd slowly began to leave, people carried more than just photos or videos. They carried the memory of what they just witnessed. A Marine and a group of bikers showing what unity and quiet respect really look like. For many, it was a lesson in not rushing to judge, in choosing to understand before assuming. It was a small step toward closing the gap between society and the biker community. The bikers started their engines and rode off together, each one hoping the world might see them a little differently now. Tim stood back and watched as their silhouettes grew smaller in the distance. He knew they might never cross paths again, but that moment they shared would always stay with him. Then he turned and began the walk back home. He had done what he came to do. He honored his brother and every soldier who never made it back. And in the process, something unexpected had happened. Not through big speeches or headlines, but through quiet gestures, mutual respect, and the kind of understanding only warriors truly share. As for those who watched it all unfold, they left with one simple but lasting truth. Never judge a book by its cover, because the story inside might just change your heart. What an inspiring story. Did you expect the bikers to stand with the injured Marine like that? Have you ever made a snap judgment and later realized you were wrong? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. And if this touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. We'll see you in the next one.